Welcome to the digital stage. I'm so happy to have you all here. Jane Bartel, who is the Director of Search and Content Marketing at TopRank, and Nick Nelson, who is Associate Content Director at TopRank. Welcome. How are you?
Doing great. Thank you so much for having us.
So good. Yeah, great to be here.
So nice to have you. Yeah, great to have you. I'm going to turn it over to you, and I will see you for some Q&A in just a little while.
All right. Well, again, thank you so much for having us. We're really happy to be back for another webinar with the Content Marketing Institute. We are hailing from TopRank Marketing. We're an agency that's pretty laser focused on creating these high-performing content experiences that are specifically designed to keep your brand findable, valuable, and really relevant to your audience. TopRank actually started as an SEO agency specifically more than 20 years ago. And recently we've been honored with a couple awards, including one from this gang, which makes us very proud. Largely our clients are marketers who, just kind of need a hand with reaching the right audience who will eventually convert and contribute to revenue. Their challenges are often the same across many business sizes, right? They need to get in front of their audience and grow their pipeline, but are not always sure how or what content will resonate. So I'm joined today by my friend and colleague, Nick Nelson. In both of our roles, we are always intertwining the goal of SEO, visibility and audience growth with loads of tactics that are at our disposal as an agency, and they're available to you too. Our mission today really is to shed some light on what you can do to best optimize your website as a tool to support your marketing. And because today's theme is SEO Glow Up, we'll talk through some routine tactics and give our advice on whether these tactics are ones that you should adopt or drop in the new year.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Jane. So what do we mean when we talk about an SEO glow up? What are we going to be discussing here? What are we going to be providing you with? Really, this is just a refreshed set of tactics. We're going to look at some traditional SEO tactics, how they might be changing or losing relevance, and some new tactics that also are, effective in the new era of search. We know that SEO is changing very fast. We know there's been a lot of algorithm changes and a lot of shifts recently. So it's a really important time to be having this discussion here as we look ahead to 2025. Of course, we know that, as a marketer, there is no better look than succeeding in search. Beyond the obvious benefits and impact of drawing qualified visitors to your website or your resources online, there's just the optics, right? It's a huge credibility builder to be showing up at the top of search results for topics that are important to your business and to your audience. People know that Google and other search engines and some of these emerging search platforms are very sophisticated in the way that they evaluate authority and credibility around specific topics. So it's really important to be showing up at the top. It's as important as ever, even with some of the trends that are playing out in the search landscape that are making it a little more volatile.
Absolutely. So our hope
go ahead, Jen.
Is that today you walk away with all of these things and kind of all in the name of web growth. And when we say web growth, we are including all of the ways that we kind of aim to attract audience to our site. We engage them and eventually hopefully convert them, right? Have them contribute to some revenue. SEO is just one tactic within this umbrella of web growth, but really we're talking about many ways, not just traditional search engines, to expand your website and its impact on your brand's findability and the value that you can put in front of your audience.
Yeah, and one thing to mention here too is we talk about web growth tactics. That's a term we like to use. This presentation is very SEO focused. It is looking at sort of how you can rank in Google and some of the mainstream search engines, but we really look at it beyond that because we know that our goal, our client's goal, your goal is just to gain visibility and engagement and impact on the web through various means. So a lot of this is going to go above and beyond search. A lot of these best practices, they're really meant to be future-proof in the new sort of search environment, which of course goes well beyond Google. So I think that's an important thing in mind when we talk about web growth tactics and what that means.
And why do we talk about this now? Of course, there's no time like the present. We're entering a new calendar year, perhaps a new fiscal year for a lot of you. And for more than a few of this group, that feeling of kind of scrambling to prove value of what you've been up to this year is really fresh. If you haven't been asked to lay out your 2025 plans yet, it's probably either because you're the boss and it's on your to-do list, or somebody's waiting for it. And remember that doing the work to frame your goals at the onset of a change, whether that's a new approach or a new year, really is going to be worth the work so that you can quantify your success later on. SEO is not dead, heads down. We're going to say that it is focusing really specifically on providing the best experience it can for the users of each search engine. And that's really demonstrated by its prevalence, right? Google still dominates in popularity, with the majority of searches there being long tail, really specific queries. If you earn your site a top ranking position, you could see a click-through rate of over 9%, the average for that position. And because search marketers, as search marketers, we're always challenged to connect, those seemingly top funnel efforts to bottom funnel results. This one's for you, right? Average close rate for leads from SEO is 8 times higher than other channels.
Yeah, and I think that top stat there is really important. There's a perception, I think, that generative searches has completely overhauled the search landscape, and it is having a big impact, right? But Google is still buying, far and away the number one place people are going to find information online. It's a very ingrained behavior. People have been using Google for 20 years. They're very, very familiar with it. And Google is a powerful platform that is getting better and better at serving results that people want, that are super useful. And that's what we're going to talk about, is making sure you're aligning with how it's prioritizing these results. So, with everything that's changing, with all these new tools and platforms and techniques that are coming into play, there are more tricks you can do in your your SEO arsenal, right? But at the same time, we know that everyone is really pressed for time and resources. As an example, a stat here from CMI, we know that 58% of demand gen marketers say that a lack of internal resources is one of their top challenges. I'm sure that sounds very familiar to a lot of people here. So, if you're responsible for, in any way, for, proving results, showing efficiency with your strategy, proving ROI, that it's just as important to know what not to do as what to do, because you don't want to be spending your time on ineffective things, draining your budget on these things. So really, we're going to be looking for efficiency. How can we get the most out of what we have? How can we take the best tricks and make sure that we're using them the best way we can? Because the risk is substantial. I'm not trying to be doomsdayish here, but I think people are aware. Websites everywhere, brands everywhere are losing that organic traffic. These trends are seen very pervasively across the landscape. And part of that is just sort of the natural forces of what's happening, but part of that is because people are behind in sort of updating and optimizing their tactics for this new environment. So just want to emphasize that, it does take some effort. We're really focusing on things that are relatively low lift, not total reinvention of the wheel, but sort of updated tactics you can implement. And it's really valuable to do that now, because failing to do so can cause a loss of traffic that's going to take a lot more effort and resources to recover from.
Yes, absolutely. And maintaining these best practices is easier than going back and recovering after a major loss, right? So we're going to kind of approach it with that lens of building good habits. So today we're going to kind of run through this exercise. It's a self-sanctioned verdict on which tactics are going to be worth your time in 2025. We're giving it a stamp of approval, adopt, or we're saying don't bother, drop it.
All right, let's get to it. So we start with a real classic sort of SEO content planning staple, targeting keywords by search volume. This, of course, is just looking at some of that basic data to understand the quantity of searches that are taking place for a keyword on a monthly basis. As a content marketer, this has been sort of a planning mainstay in terms of sort of sizing up the opportunity of a particular keyword or topic. And looking at search volume is still a valuable practice. However, I think we want to evolve it a little, Jane.
Absolutely. Verdict here. Not sad to see this one go. We're saying drop. Volume should just be one factor in prioritizing your keyword targets. You should also be factoring in relevance, difficulty, how hard is it to rank for that term, your likelihood to win in that space, and the funnel stage. Is it really relevant to your audience? Remember that lower volume keywords are often less difficult to win and could actually be more relevant to a person who's likely to convert out of your audience. So whereas high volume keywords are usually, basic knowledge level stuff, they're more competitive and really they're more easily answered by an AI overview that does not drive traffic.
Yes, once you start getting into those long tail, high intent keywords, that's where you can really deliver the value. Also, I want to make sure, I saw a comment in the chat about something we mentioned. AB asked, why are websites losing organic traffic? I didn't get that. There are a variety of factors. I would say sort of the biggest thing driving this is the rise of the zero-click search, which is kind of what Jane's just talking about here, right? Some of these really high volume, high level topics, people can get that AI snapshot at the top of it, or maybe a featured snippet, and they get the information they need. They answer that sort of simple question and they move on without clicking to a website. That's happening far more often.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and AB, on top of that type of result that doesn't drive traffic to your site, other things that are impacting organic traffic across the board are all of these algorithm updates that are making it a little bit more competitive, right? The Google algorithm, for example, is making sure that each site is demonstrating a certain amount of authority, firsthand experience. So whereas a site maybe could rank for a term that they didn't have a ton of content around, maybe one page did it for them, that's no longer the case. The algorithms are getting better at understanding and looking at the full library of content when they're assessing what should show up for which terms. Great question.
Yes. All right, so let's take another look at a classic SEO mainstay, optimizing metadata. This is optimizing your title tags, your meta descriptions, and sort of some of this background information that search engines look at when they're evaluating a page for search results. This is, I think it's a tactic that, as we'll discuss, is still relevant, but I think we need to maybe change the way we look at it, right?
Yes, yeah, we're saying adopt. Definitely do this. This is a great thing to chip away at with regularity. The practice of optimizing your metadata has evolved pretty substantially over the years. It used to be about making sure that the exact target keyword was showing up in your title, in your meta description, in your image tags. But now optimizing metadata is really more about clarity. Are you giving people and search engines a real true view of what is included in that page? And are you expressing those EEAT principles? And we'll talk a little bit more about those. This is related to a probably more advanced tactic around structured data, which we'll cover today as well.
So how about drafting to reach a specific word count? This is a direction that content writers get from an SEO perspective a lot of the time, and it comes from an analysis of the search engine result page. What is the average length of a result that is showing up on that page? That can generally give you a kind of good idea of the length that Google is maybe viewing as appropriate for answering that question adequately. But Jane, do we think a drafting by word count is still a best practice these days?
I'm giving this a drop. I think that every writer has had this kind of goal, these in front of them of, oh my gosh, I have to hit 1,500 words or 2,000 words to even have a chance at ranking. My philosophy on this is that if you've run out of things to add, it's okay to just stop writing. If you feel like you can add sections to your content that add value, yes, by all means extrapolate. If it comes naturally, build out the piece of content to be as robust as it needs to be. But I think rather than word count, let's focus on, are we answering for the search intent? Are we answering the question that we set out to answer? There's no need to be repetitive to hit a word count.
Yes. Increasingly, Google is looking at, is this content helpful? Is it useful? And if you're adding word count simply for the purpose of adding word count, I think that inherently is probably not useful content to add, right? Here's a big one, AI for content creation. This is obviously a major topic in the world of content and marketing in general. You know, how can you use these AI tools to make your content creation process more efficient? We've lived through the Big Bang. I think ChatGPT's 2-year birthday is coming up. So it's starting to reach a level of maturity somewhat. And I think marketers are trying to really figure out how they can best use this technology. And I think it's important to say when we talk about AI for content creation, we're certainly talking about really just producing content with it as opposed to using it as an aid in the content creation process.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and Nick, you touched on this. This is a big no-no for me. Inherently, these tools cannot create, right? They can only generate. If you lean on them too heavily, you'll inherently sacrifice what makes your brand valuable, which is the original thought that you add to it. Now, more than ever, the value of content hinges on the authenticity of its creator and the underlying value, meaning, story, and perspective of the content they're creating. I think that quote really very nicely sums it up. I think just, you know, we could do a whole webinar on this, and we will talk about some of the benefits that AI has for content creation and generation, but mostly those are going to be in planning stages. If you're using AI to do the actual writing, you're going to get dinged. We've seen the results on this already, and the sites that are letting AI do their writing are not faring well.
Technical audits. You know, this is a process that involves crawling your website, flagging issues across a really wide variety of factors from, you know, page load speed to accessibility, things that are being evaluated just to make sure that everything is technically sound and in place in terms of just the overall health and optimization of your site.
Yes, these adopt for sure. If you're not doing these with any regularity, work this into your plan. In a survey for Search Engine Journal's State of SEO report for 2025, respondents said that technical SEO skill is the thing that's hardest to find. And that's because there's really high demand for somebody who can run these crawls, identify, and most importantly, prioritize the issues that come up in this type of crawl. We say adopt this tactic if you're not doing it already. We do them monthly and lay out an action plan based on those crawl results to resolve any issues as they align with the availability of our team, right? Like if you know that this fixing technical issues is not going to be something that you can focus on in Q1, it's okay to delay this technical audit as long as you're aware if there are any major issues. A lot of times this is something that you can kind of keep in maintenance mode and deal with if there's a major flag that comes up. But definitely, we don't want the technical health of your site to be a blind spot, and these technical audits are the only way around it, right? While they can be something that's kind of in maintenance mode, as we say, that's kind of checked in on and maybe not a main focus of your action plan, the baseline, right, that health of your site across these technical factors does have a really big impact on your potential to rank. So you want to be sure any issues are buttoned up.
So let's talk about another kind of audit, an inventory and performance audit. That's a little bit of maybe TopRank lingo. That's how we refer to them. But basically what we're talking about here is simply an audit of your web presence that gives you a full understanding of the content that lives on your website and properties, the performance across key metrics that you have, whether it's visibility, engagement, or conversion. This is really taking a hard look over a specific time span at which content performed the best, which landing pages were drawing people into your site most frequently, what kind of user paths are people taking to convert. So a really valuable process that we use with a lot of clients.
Adopt this puppy for sure. These audits are a personal favorite of mine. They have proven to be the best resource we have for making decisions about the content ecosystem. This type of audit is going to be especially important for sites that have been around, if they've got some years under their belt, or you are, you've published a ton of content about a certain topic and you've maybe touched on it from lots of different pages, lots of different ways, or if you're, very aware that you are experiencing any content cannibalization, this audit gives you the keys to that castle. You can't fix any of those issues unless you can see them. this audit pulls from multiple data sources, and it's just really, really illuminating, especially if you've had any turnover in your team is another reason you might want to run this audit, to just get full lay of the land.
EEAT audits, another version of an audit, and this is really more of a new style of audit that has come into play here, I think, within the last few years. EEAT being, of course, Google's quality rater guidelines that they use to evaluate the helpfulness and people-first nature of content. So those stand for experience, expertise, authoritativeness, and trustworthiness. So really what this audit is doing is looking at things like author credentials, the accuracy and timeliness of your content, the reliability of your sources and your citing, demonstrations of the real experiences that your brand has to show that you know what you're talking about, and the depth and robustness of your coverage on topics of interest.
Yes, another good one. Definitely adopt. We know that the alignment with EEAT and search intent is the top focus area in the next year for search marketers. Can't underscore this enough. These audits are just really going to illuminate which of those many factors across those EEAT guidelines you are experiencing. So one example here that we see a lot is to be able to demonstrate firsthand experience. This EEAT audit is going to tell you if your site is achieving that. Are you properly displaying the expertise that you have? When we do these audits, we also put together recommended actions for how to remedy any of those gaps. This is relatively new best practice, right? So don't feel bad if you haven't done one of these yet, but it is really good information to have when you're thinking about your site as a whole ecosystem.
Obsessing over algorithm changes. This one might hit home in the same search engine journal research that we just cited, the State of SEO 2025. Search marketers said that algorithm changes were their #1 challenge over the past year, trying to keep pace with them, trying to understand the impact and implications of them. And that certainly makes sense because the number of algorithm changes that Google has rolled out over the past couple of years has been unprecedented. So it certainly makes sense that people are feeling this need to sort of obsess and stay hyper-focused on them. Do you think that's the right approach, Jane?
I'm never a fan of obsessing over one thing, especially algorithm changes. We do monitor and understand. We publish content about what happens and what's involved in each of these algorithm changes as best we can suss it out. But we don't condone any obsessing over them. I think save yourself the stress and instead focus on your fundamentals. My line here, I'll sound like a broken record, but search engines are inherently trying to emulate a good decision made by a human. So trust your instincts. If this is valuable content and if it fits in with your content ecosystem, what you're trying to achieve with your whole site, it's going to be a good fit.
Absolutely.
Lightning round.
All right.
All right, we're going to go through a couple pretty quick here. We are starting off with keyword stuffing, the theory of just get as many instances of your keyword into a piece of content, even if they're literally not visible. Drop this forever. All of the other black hat tactics too, get them out of there.
All right. How about partnering with developers? This would be, for implementing things that maybe go beyond the control of somebody with keys to the CMS. These are deeper optimizations that a content marketer maybe would not have the expertise or access on the back end to do. We definitely recommend adopting this. Make the developers your best friends. They can really make a lot of tweaks to help improve the user experience. They can implement efficient batch fixes. They can weigh in on prioritization of your efforts. And we find that they're just a generally very enjoyable bunch.
Absolutely. On-page optimization, or OPO. This is a lighter lift than fully refreshing a piece of content, but is a review of that content for updates to any of the metadata, maybe addition of a couple subtopics within. We say adopt. This is a really important thing to do, but it is dependent on a larger strategy in play. This is one of those tempting tactics you could, spend your life doing, but you want to be really thoughtful about which pages are getting this attention.
Yes. How about mobile first indexing? So this is taking the effort to indicate the to use the mobile version of your site for indexing on search engines, and really making that mobile experience a key factor in your ranking evaluation. Definitely recommend adopting this. You'll want to look at your analytics. An inventory and performance audit can be very helpful for this, to understand how people are accessing your site from what devices. But generally speaking, in today's world, most people are probably coming to your site from mobile. So it's good to sort of index around that and plan around that and make sure that you're providing that great experience.
Absolutely. XML sitemaps. These are a list essentially of important URLs that crawlers reference when they're trying to, say air quotes, understand the site structure and discover pages more efficiently. Giving this a drop. Don't stop this entirely, but don't spend a ton of time on your sitemaps. There are tools for this. Instead, focus your time on user experience and natural site architecture, meaning what's intuitive in terms of topics and subtopics that a person can navigate.
Structured data. I think this is sort of the evolved conversation around metadata and optimizing around it. Really, structured data is one of the key technical factors that we look at. This is also known as schema markup. And basically, it's this added code that provides context and relationship information to Google and search engines. Really helpful for enabling those rich results like, say, featured snippets, FAQ content, knowledge panels. We really recommend adopting this. It's a great strategy. It's really helpful for helping Google understand how your site is organized, what content is most helpful. This is a bit of a technical undertaking, but it's not super convoluted or anything, and it's definitely a step worth taking, assuming the format is right for your audience.
Definitely. Last one in the lightning round is topical mapping. Definitely something to look into if this isn't something that you are familiar with yet. Essentially, it's a tree map illustrating the connection between keywords within a topic. They are vetted at that point for unique search intent. So it serves two purposes. It's a list of content that you would need to address in order to achieve kind of full coverage of a topic. And it also serves as a guide for your internal linking, showing how all that content should be connected topically. So this is a definite adopt. You want to be doing this in 2025. Great time to start. Relatively new tactic here as well, but it really is just very key to organized internal linking and efficiency in achieving that coverage. Okay, I'm going to slow it down again. Refreshing published content, Nick. This is, I know, a tactic that we get asked about all of the time. If your site has published a lot of content over a long period of time, you're likely ahead of the curve in terms of demonstrating your authority on that topic. But how long has it been sitting there? Does it need a little dust off? Is it still accurate or on brand? Do the links even go to the best place? Do they even work? Refreshing content for these established libraries does take a certain level of organization, though. So is it worth the effort?
Yes, we are definitely adopting the refreshes of published content. I think this kind of speaks to a question we got in the chat from a familiar name there, Ashley Zeckman. Hi, Ashley. She asked, what would you do if your website plateaus due to fewer resources and is driving the wrong traffic based on somewhat irrelevant keywords? Should you spend the time trying to salvage legacy content or start over with new relevant content? I think in a majority of cases, it really makes sense to go back to your published content if you've already talked about this topic, and evaluate if the page is worth refreshing, first of all. Does it have any kind of traction? Is it getting any traffic? Does it have any backlinks? If it does, it's probably something that's worth going back to and refreshing with more accurate, up-to-date information. It's already got that traction within Google. We've seen this make a huge difference in rankings for pages that have plateaued or lost rankings. So that's why it's really valuable to keep an eye on those. One of the key trends and themes I think we see is that Google and all these search engines are very focused on serving timely, up-to-date information. They don't want to be serving people, info from 5 years ago, and they're getting a lot better about that.
And it's related to, one thing that we tackle sometimes in these refreshes is internal linking. So inline links, calls to action, breadcrumbs, these are all examples of internal links. In short, this is just a link from one page on your site to another. These links are also serving as paths for search engines and other crawlers to see your site and assess how much information you have published about that topic. Very important when we're talking about demonstrating authority on a topic. What do you think, Nick?
This is definitely an adopter. This is really, in our mind, one of the most overlooked SEO tactics. It does take a certain amount of effort to, understand how all your content connects and to build that into your planning. What should we be linking to? What should we be linking from? I think is a big one too that tends to get overlooked. If you already have a good, strong, high-performing piece of content on a topic and you're creating something related, go back to that original post and add a link to the new piece, because you're building these real strong connections that Google can see and help understand how all this content is organized and how it relates to each other. And it creates a great user experience because they can learn about additional dimensions of the topic without ever having to leave your site. So a strong internal linking discipline is one of the most valuable things I think you can have for your SEO strategy.
Yes. Perfect. And I'm going to address a couple questions that we're seeing here about the refreshes and internal linking. Brittany asked, refreshing published content. If it's a blog post, do you recommend deleting the old one and reposting the new? It depends, but largely if you have a URL that works and is relevant and a page that already has a little bit of visibility, reuse it. We often put that refreshed content on an existing URL. You can give it a full facelift, a little zhuzh, as much as you want there, but sometimes that old URL already has a little bit of kind of clout, right? So definitely recommend preserving those. Trisha asked about the last updated or last reviewed date. Yes, use that wherever you can. That is what engines are crawling and using to decipher how how recent the content is. So the freshness of your content, as Nick mentioned, matters. Show it off where you can.
Yes. A few best practices, I think, for the ability to do refreshes and stuff. A lot of it lies in the URL itself. A few things that we try to do and recommend to our clients is in your URL structure, don't have dates, because then, if you're trying to update something from 2021, it's still going to have the year in the URL. That's not ideal. And don't use, numbers if you're doing like a listicle or years, because those just make it harder to update and have the URL remain relevant. Really, all that can come through in some of the, actual content itself, the title, and the way you frame the content to show the number of items or the year that it's related to.
Mm-hmm. Yep, absolutely. Amy asked, last one here, about deleting irrelevant or out-of-date published content. We are a big fan of consolidating content where it makes sense. Rather than deleting it, see if you can redirect it to the most relevant place. So if you have, for example, a service page or a more up-to-date place that you're answering whatever that search query is, send them to a make sense place, right? You want to just keep thinking about the user experience there. All right, we'll keep it rolling. Next up is backlink outreach. This is one of the tried and true practices of SEO. I think any SEO professional has been maybe somewhat haunted by this practice. What we know is that links from another site to yours have been viewed as more or less street cred, right? They're indicators of another site's perception of your site as an authority worth citing. So backlink outreach historically is the practice of asking other sites, literally getting in touch with them and saying, hey, would you ever link to your own, right? So for many, this has been a very time-consuming, you can imagine getting a hold of the right people is a very time-consuming endeavor with mixed results. Nick, what do you think?
Yeah, I'm not going to say this doesn't work at all, but we're putting this in the drop bucket. I think the juice is not necessarily worth the squeeze with all the effort you have to put in, especially if you want to create, meaningful, personalized messaging to everyone you're reaching to. Really what we recommend is just letting the content speak for itself and earn those backlinks. Focus on creating content that warrants linking it to, and use your promotion as your outreach. Get it out there to people who are going to be interested in it. Make sure you're using the right promotional tactics and optimizations to show up for the right audience, and you're going to earn those backlinks because when they're looking on Google, they're going to find you near the top of the results, and they're going to come to recognize you as an authority that's worth linking to on this topic. That's really the most ideal outcome.
Okay, different but related. Let's talk about publishing original research. Original research, we're talking about unique information that wasn't previously available to teams who are using AI for content generation. They're not going to have original thoughts in there, right? This is not regurgitating information. This is the practice of delivering something really new, not just the thought that goes into it, but perhaps new stats, survey results.
Yes. Original research is a big win. It's going to be a big win for your audience. In B2B especially, we know that these decision makers love original research, and it builds a lot of because they come to recognize you as the source, someone who's actually bringing novel insight into the industry. And it's also really good for search. We talk about, especially like generative engines, they are synthesizers of existing information. There's a lot of information that you can regurgitate that they can find elsewhere, not necessarily going to help you stand out in terms of ranking or gaining backlinks. But if you are the source of the information, unique information, that's really powerful for becoming that source that gets cited in different content and in some of these engines.
Right. And Google talks about this really explicitly in some of their documentation as growing the knowledge base. So, I mean, literally, you're adding value for Google. They're going to favor you if you're giving them something new to latch on to.
Yeah. And one thing I think is really worth mentioning, original research can seem like a huge undertaking, especially maybe for a mid to smaller size brand. You think of some of the more ambitious reports there, such as Content Marketing Institute's amazing benchmark research that they release every year. To be, a massive survey audience or a huge undertaking, we've worked with a lot of smaller clients who've produced really great original research reports and seen awesome results. So don't make the mistake of thinking it's not for you based on maybe your resources, your company size, because it's coming a lot more of an attainable tactic, I think.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. And this can be as small or as large as you make it, but the important part here is that you are adding something new. Okay, we're going to get into a metrics edition. This is going to be similar to the lightning round, but all about how we measure the effectiveness of these tactics. So we're going to talk through specific metrics. The first one is keyword rankings. I know a lot of people keep a very close eye on this, the quantity of terms that your site ranks for. I'm going to give this a drop. My objection here is relevance. We have seen so many random keywords show up in total list of keyword rankings for ourselves, for our clients. They do not mean everything, right? So if you're ranking for something that is not relevant to your business and you lose that ranking, you're going to be disappointed until you realize that the quantity of rankings does not matter as much as the relevance here.
Yeah, it's all about the quality of rankings. I think every company basically that we've ever worked with has like one blog post that is just random topic, but it is a huge driver of like traffic to their site because it has this random high ranking. It's good to have that traffic. It looks nice on the reports, but is that traffic doing anything for you? Probably not, right? How about key events? Helping you understand what people are doing on your site. Key events is a term that's really popularly used in GA4, Google Analytics. This is how they kind of characterize conversions more broadly. They used to use conversions as the term, but now they use key events because a key event can be more than what's strictly considered a conversion, right? It's what you want people to do. It's the actions that are valuable to your business. Definitely recommend a great focus on key events. Use an audit of your tracked events to ensure they are complete and accurate, and you have a really clear view of these actions that are being taken and how you can optimize them.
Mm-hmm. Yep, absolutely. We can't talk about SEO without talking about clicks from search. This is a very important metric to keep your eye on. More important than keyword rankings. The trick here, clicks from search, this is really a metric of the people who see you in a search result. How many times do they choose to leave that search engine for your site? I think measure this, but don't expect it to go up unless you're answering for search intent. You need to demonstrate that the page that they're clicking to is going to give them what they want, and then you better make good on that promise.
Organic conversion rate. These are conversions or really any kinds of key events divided by the sessions or entries limited to users who have entered your website via organic search. Adopt. I really think this is arguably one of the single most important metrics and indicators in marketing because we know that organic traffic and that you're acquiring through this means is cheap. Once you've done the work to build this organic presence, you don't have to pay to get these visitors. And theoretically, they are very well qualified because they are being organically drawn through the content that you're creating. They're interested in these topics. So if you have a strong organic conversion rate that is, higher than the overall sum of all traffic coming to your site, I think that's just a great sign that what you're doing is working. You're drawing the right kind of traffic, and then that becomes an impetus to invest more in creating great organic content and bringing in more of that traffic.
Yes, absolutely. And not only is this one really important to monitor, but we love setting goals around this, right? So even in a time where your organic traffic may be getting substantially impacted by an algorithm update or a change in your business, the organic conversion rate is something that should hold steady. If you're targeting and acquiring the right audience, this conversion rate is something that you can grow with valuable content and a make sense journey for them laid out. Per page performance. This is, I think, a bad habit. Name the metric, and somebody has wanted to examine that in detail for just one page at a time. I think that's great. If you have a top performer or what we call them like a pet page that you want to monitor very closely, definitely that's fine. But if you're thinking of your content as a complete library and ecosystem, you're going to be much better off when you are planning content. And even without winning in a vacuum, a single page can still contribute to your overall results. So not every page has to do everything, but know that even if the results on a single page aren't standing out to you for some reason, that it is helping. If it's aligned, it's helping you demonstrate your authority around a topic.
Yes. And finally, impact on revenue. This is, of course, the connection point from the top funnel metrics to those bottom funnel metrics and results. We got to adopt this. We're kidding ourselves if we think this is not ultimately what leadership cares about most. They want to know that these efforts are making an impact on revenue and business growth. Of course, it's not the most simple or straightforward thing, because we also know that most of the time someone's not clicking to a blog post off a search page and immediately buying your product or signing up for your service, right? So we do need to be a little more thoughtful and evolved in the way that we consider this. You look at things like organic conversion rate, which we just discussed. That can be a great indicator that can help you connect some of these things to the revenue. Once you start understanding what is the value of these actions, how are people taking them, how much are we paying to get them to take them, that's really where you start to get some really valuable ROI insight from SEO, I think.
Beautiful. All right. So we've gone through a lot of tactics. I think bottom line, if you guys have picked up on this thread, we have to plan more in 2025. It's going to be harder than ever to succeed in search. We know this. So you need more information to devise that effective approach. One size fits all tactics are not going to work anymore. We can't do the same thing for every client or for every property that we work on. More tools and tactics are available. They present some very extraordinary solutions, but a lot of distractions. And we want to be really sure that the resources that we're using, we know that that's our limitation, right? It's always going to be resourcing. We never have enough time in the day to do everything that we want to do. So your plan here is going to be really crucial, that what you're doing is actually what's most impactful. So when we make a plan, Brody, hi. This is maybe going to answer a little bit of your question. When we make a plan for SEO tactics, we make sure that that plan has these three qualities, and we're going to give you examples of all three of these. But, we know that planning, like when I say planning, you can just hear everybody's like getting that sad trombone noise, because it's not really as cool as going out there and doing something. But it is worth the investment so that your efforts don't fall flat. So first thing that we include in all of our plans, highly recommend you leverage this, is an OAK summary. So that means you're listing out your objective, approach, KPIs. It should include a 30-day quick win plan, so that when you're talking about, okay, here's our 6-month plan, you don't lose momentum at the beginning of it. And then lastly, there is a prioritization by opportunity. And we'll look at all of these now. The first table here, and if you download the slides, you can take a look at this, but pretty straightforward, right? Objective, and then list your approach. What are you actually going to do here that supports that objective? And then list your KPI, one metric per approach. You can have secondary ones, but really there should be one measurement factor, right? Choose just one or two ways that you can measure that effectiveness. And this table is like really already saving so many headaches for future you. You're going to be so glad that you can refer back to this and stay organized with this in front of you. Second piece of our planning that we focus on here is this 30-day win plan. This is something that gets built out really in a lot of detail, right? But for those first 30 days in particular of a quarterly plan or a 6-month plan, this format has been really helpful to just kind of distribute those short-term actions to kickstart that cycle. So in here, we want to note what that action is, be really specific, start with a verb. I've learned this one the hard way. If you don't make it a real action, it's not going to always get done. Include the detail, everything that the doer needs in order to complete this action. That, even if that's yourself, put it all together in one place. The SEO input, so any details gleaned from your research, other tidbits that inform that action. We talked about not planning around word count, but if you know that something is 2,000 words, that's a helpful tidbit. If you know that there are, increased search demand around related terms to the one that you're targeting, that's great information. So just any consideration that will help you complete this action. Of course, note who's assigned and who's doing it, and then again, the metric here. Last piece of a good plan is this prioritization calculator. Okay, so this is a simple version of the calculator that we use when we're deciding on a tactical mix. Custom factors and weights will make this more meaningful for you. So for example, business priority. What is your business prioritizing? If it's maybe a particular product, a launch, maybe like a transfer of traffic from one site to another via migration. What is the topic, narrative, conversation that the brand is really prioritizing? Often this comes from on high, right? Put that in there, score it 1 to 10. Also score the potential gain. What do you stand to win if this is executed? Normalize that on a scale as well. How easy is this to achieve? Does this require a ton of resources, or is this something you can knock out in a week? Is it really aligned with your audience? Will this resonate? This is the time to really reflect on your audience research. Will this resonate? Is it in the right format? Does this task, is it in the right place, essentially? Score that as well. And if you want to, you can just average out those scores. So in the example data here, the EEAT audit got all 10s, right? We would do that one definitely first. The other tactics here, kind of middling scores, maybe is not the first priority, but definitely something that you can work into your list. So this is how we help prioritize our tactics when, again, there are so many options of what to do here, so many tools to help us do it. Putting this list together and doing a little bit of math on the prioritization calculator can be very, very helpful. So all of those are just samples. These SEO Glow Up resources are going to be available to you. We have within these presentation slides, those examples of the OAK summary, the 30-day action plan template, that prioritization calculator. There's also a link in here for some further reading for SEO in 2025. That's to the TopRank blog. We're publishing a lot of content there about SEO as well. If you're interested in reading more, that's a good place to start.